Adam Mottershead, Fabia Billing, and Kevin Antonias, myself as chair. Staff members this evening we have is Walter Basic, Assistant Director of Planning. Hi, Walter. Michaela Bray, Planner. Don't see her yet, but, and then Dilhara Abi-Wardine, right here to my left. So just a brief announcement regarding live stream. Members of the public are advised that our meetings are live streamed by the town of Grimsby. Individuals and media may be audibly and or visually recorded during this meeting. As a reminder, all electronic devices are to be in silent mode during our committee meeting. Regarding the procedures of the meeting itself, the purpose of the application and relative correspondence will be heard, following which the applicant will be given the opportunity to address the application. Any person concerned with the application will then be given an opportunity to speak. At the conclusion of the discussion, the committee will render a decision and advise of any applicable conditions. Copies of the decisions will be mailed to the applicant or agent and to any other person who files a written request. To request a copy of the decision, please email Dilhara at coa@grimsby.ca. The applicant, the Town of Grimsby, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, specified persons, and certain public bodies have the right to appeal either the decision itself or the conditions of consent to the Ontario Land Tribunal, or the OLT, within 20 days of the date of giving notice under subsection 17 is completed for consent, and within 20 days as well for the date of decision for a minor variance application. Specified persons and certain public bodies include public utilities, but do not include an individual or community association. Everyone present will be given an opportunity to comment on the applications being heard. Please address your comments and questions through the chair. Each participant will be provided 5 minutes to speak, and each participant may speak only once unless asked to comment again. If you hear your name, if you comment, you hear your comment presented by someone else, please do not duplicate the remarks. When you're called, we ask that you state your name and address for the record. Agencies commenting on applications may request certain conditions be imposed. Voicing objections to these conditions will not adversely affect the committee's decision. All members of the committee have viewed the properties on the agenda tonight and are familiar with the lands that are subject to the applications. Regarding pecuniary interest, do any members of the committee have a pecuniary interest in the matters before us this evening? No? And I have none as well. Are there any requests for withdrawal or adjournment, Dilhara? No? First matter then is the minutes from the previous meeting that was held on May 16th. You've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Are there any questions or comments? No? If not, then do I have a mover and a seconder regarding approval of the minutes? Just raise your hand. I think would be the easiest. Dan? Seconder? Adam? Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Or raise your hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. Then we'll go to the first application. We have 5 on the agenda this evening. So the first one is A1623, located at 346 Kemp Road West. Dilhara, I'll pass it over to you.
Okay, let me just share my screen.
Mr. Chair, before we get too far along, did you want to deal with the election of the vice chair?
Okay, just a second here. I did see that, and I must have skipped it. Let's find it. Oh, I know why. It's a different. I did see it on here somewhere. Yeah, that's why. Okay, so we did not elect a vice chair at the last meeting. We missed that one. So do we have a motion and a seconder to nominate a person to be vice chair for 2023? Any volunteers? Adam? Okay. A seconder for that?
I will.
Dan? Any further discussion on this matter? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, if any? Was carried. All right, Adam? Vice chair it is.
Thanks.
All right, now we'll go back to the application. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Dilhara.
It's okay, thank you. Okay, so the first application is A1623, 346 Kemp Road West. And The purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a detached accessory building, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 10.1%, whereas 7.5% is permitted, and to permit a minimum setback of 1.3 meters from the rear lot line, whereas 3 meters is required for an accessory building in an agricultural zone. And this is an image of the site plan that was submitted with the application. It was included in the notice of hearing as well. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. And these are the existing conditions of the site. And this is what is proposed for the site. And as far as correspondence, there was no objection from any of the agencies. Simply the condition of an advisory clause from the Niagara region, which I will read out now. That the owner be advised of the following advisory clause. Should deeply buried archaeological remains or resources be found during construction activities, all activities impacting archaeological resources must cease immediately, and the proponent must notify the Archaeological Programs Unit of the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism and contact a licensed archaeologist to carry out an archaeological assessment in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act and the standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologists. In the event that human remains are encountered during construction, all activities must cease immediately, and the local police, as well as the Cemeteries Regulation Unit of the Ministry of Public and Business Services, must be contacted. In situations where human remains are associated with archaeological resources, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism should also be notified to ensure that the site is not subject to unlicensed alterations, which would be a contravention to the Ontario Heritage Act. And that's it from me.
Okay, is the owner or the representative here? Would you like to address the application in the committee at all? You can come up to this mic here and just push the red button. Just get your, if we can get your name and address for the record, and then outline the reason for the request, or elaborate if you'd like, or comment on the staff report. Thanks.
Recording in progress.
I know it's red. I'm Mark Rosema. I'm the owner of the property. I'm just looking to build a detached garage. I guess the property's zoned specialty crop, so it's 7.5% limit. The house is 6.3% coverage on its own, so to allow for the garage, I'm gonna, I guess, asking for 10.1%. And also on the rear setback to the property line, looking for 1.3 meters instead of 3 meters, just because with the 3 meters, it starts to encroach on the house and leaves a pretty big space behind the garage that's not very usable.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members first? No? Yeah, Dan?
Yeah, Mark, it just says in the correspondence that it's presumed that the accessory building would be used for storage of vehicles, general utility, and not human habitation. Can you just confirm that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee members? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application at all? No? If not, then do I have a motion on the application before us? Just got to find the sheet here. Adam? Could we?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I recommend that I move that the application be approved with the conditions. So I'll just read it out. Resolve that minor variance A1623 by Mark Rosema, sorry if I get the name incorrect, for 346 Kemp Road West to permit a maximum lot coverage of 10.1%, whereas 7.5% is permitted, and to permit a minimum setback of 1.3 meters from the rear lot line, whereas 3 meters required for an accessory building in an agricultural zone be approved with conditions. And would you like me to read out the conditions again, or do you understand them?
I understand.
Okay. Yep, thanks.
Thank you. A seconder? I'll second. Dan? Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any? It was carried. So it was approved, subject to the appeal period before it becomes final and binding. Thank you for attending.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks. Next application?
Thank you. Okay, so the next application is A1523 of 522 Main Street West. And the purpose of this application is to facilitate an addition to the existing garage for residential use, to permit a total gross floor area of 621 square meters, whereas a maximum floor area of 500 square meters is permitted. And this is an image of the site plan that was submitted with the application. It was included in the notice of hearing as well. And this is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions of the site. And this is what's proposed. And as far as correspondence goes, there wasn't any objections from any of the agencies. Just a couple conditions provided by the region, which I will read out to you now. That a written legal undertaking be provided by the owner agreeing to incorporate appropriate noise mitigation measures and devices during the design and construction of the new dwelling, consisting of double-paned windows, an exterior brick facade, and central air conditioning system. Number 2, that the owner be advised of the following advisory clause. Once again, should deeply buried archaeological remains resources be found during construction activities, all activities impacting archaeological resources must cease immediately, and the proponent must notify the archaeology programs unit of the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism that and contact a licensed archaeologist to carry out an archaeological assessment in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act and the standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologists. In the event that human remains are encountered during construction, all activities must cease immediately, and the local police as well as the cemeteries regulation unit of the Ministry of Public and Business Services must be contacted. In situations where human remains are associated with archaeological resources, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism should also be notified to ensure that the site is not subject to unlicensed alterations, which would be a contravention of the Ontario Heritage Act. And that's it from me.
Thank you. Is the owner or their representative here this evening? Would you like to come forward and maybe add to the, or comment on the application or explain it for the benefit of the committee? If we could just get your name and address for the record. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect. If you just get your name and address for the record.
Katika Islik, 522 Main Street, West Grimsby.
Yeah. Did you have anything to add to the committee report or to the application?
I'm sorry, I couldn't really hear it clearly when she was...
Oh, when she was reading, yeah, she was
Yeah.
just reading the correspondence and the request that you made for the...
Yeah, my representative is there, so...
Okay. Did they, oh, there he is. Gotcha. Do you want us to let him speak now?
I think so. He will
Okay.
speak and then
Sure.
I'll cut in if I have to.
Yeah, do you want to just turn that button off then?
Sure.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sergio Galvez. I'm the designer for this project, assisting the client, the homeowner. So, yeah, the proposal is to really just maintain the existing building as it is. like everything. And really, the only addition is going to be above the garage and slightly to the rear. So it is zoned CC, convenience commercial, and it only allows for 500 square meters max. Currently, when you saw the site, currently it's sitting at 407 square meters, but with the gross floor area. But with the addition that we propose, it would go to 621. So a lot of the addition would kind of just go over the garage to the back. And then a lot of it is also just, there's no space, there's no heated or finished space below. So like to the left of the one side of the garage, it's like a covered entry porchway. And then to the other side, same idea. It's just an open kind of porch, colonnade or access area. But yeah, basically it's an increase of 121 square meters of gross floor area. But really the only part that is being built is 63 square meters on the actual ground floor.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members first? Dylan, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just noticing in the comments from Public Works, it states, please be advised that a second service tie-in connection to municipal mains, i.e. water main, sanitary sewer main, stormwater main, will not be permitted to service the additional residential living space. And I just wanted to see if that was at all a concern or anything that needed to be noted by the homeowner or the representative.
Sergio?
So we're aware of that. They basically just want to keep what's there, and we're going to minimize the amount of fixture units in the actual dwelling to make sure it just stays within the capacity of what's there.
Thank you.
Sorry. Did you have any further follow-up questions at all, Dylan?
Sorry. Yeah, I just had one other one. If this is this going to be, sorry, will this be used for as part of the owner's residence, or is this planned to be as part of, rental units or commercial space, or just so I'm clear on that point?
So So currently above the main building, there's a commercial below, and then there's two apartments above. And so with this addition, it would just be residential. The client homeowner, that would be their space. It's just one single suite, like a 2-bedroom, kitchen, living room. But yes, it's just purely for residential for their living space.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, Dan?
Thank you. It's not much of a question as it is a comment. I like that the noise mitigation strategy has been put in place with the double pane windows. Frankly, I'm surprised anyone would buy single. But I just recommend that the north side be triple. And I know I don't want to make it a condition. I struggled with that before the meeting, whether or not I would ask to change that. And so I don't think that because there's a lot of covered railway crossings or rather protected railway crossings. So the noise isn't going to be too great, but just as a suggestion, something to think about, all the north-facing windows be triple paned windows. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. Any further questions or comments from the committee members? Did I miss something, or did this come before us not too long ago?
Yes, it did.
There was I didn't see any report, but I couldn't remember. I said, I know we just saw this one for a variance. Yeah, okay. So this is thought of after and then added on, okay.
Yeah, we didn't know at that time what our maximum space would.
Right.
That we require additional.
Got you. Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this application? No? If not, then do I have a motion with the conditions? If you could read them as a mover. Dan, go ahead.
Yeah, I recommend it be approved with conditions. That it be resolved that minor variance application A1523 by Ivan or John and Katika or Kathy Islick, for 522 Main Street West to permit a total gross floor area of 621 square meters, whereas a maximum floor area of 500 square meters is permitted. That it be approved with conditions, and those conditions are, 1, that a written legal undertaking be provided by the owner agreeing to incorporate appropriate noise mitigation devices during the design and construction of the new dwelling, consisting of double pane windows, an exterior brick facade, and central air conditioning system. And 2, that the owner be advised of the following advisory clause. Should deeply buried archaeological remains resources be found during construction activities, all activities impacting archaeological resources must cease immediately. And the proponent must notify the archaeology programs unit of the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism and contact a licensed archaeologist to carry out an archaeological assessment in accordance with the Ontario Heritage Act and the standards and guidelines for consultant archaeologists. In the event that human remains are encountered during construction, all activities must cease immediately, and the local police, as well as the Cemeteries Regulation Unit of the Ministry of Public and Business Services, must be contacted. In situations where human remains are associated with archaeological resources, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism should also be notified to ensure that the site is not subject to unlicensed alterations, which would be a contravention of the Ontario Heritage Act.
Thank you. A seconder on that with the conditions? Dylan? Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any? Was carried. And again, it's approved subject to the 20-day appeal period. Thank you for coming. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
You too.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
sorry, just before we move on,
Yep.
a number of the files tonight have the advisory clause, and I'm just wondering, is it, if we could potentially have it maybe read, I don't even know if we need it read once per file, or we can just refer to it now as the advisory clause, just.
Yeah,
It
I
just
agree.
seems a little, just seems redundant since it's standard wording, but I mean, if
Yeah.
it needs to be read, I'm fine, it just.
No, I'm fine with that. I was going to suggest that I let Dan finish, but Adam did that on the first one. I'm just curious if there's a new planner at the region, all of a sudden this clause is being inserted, which seems redundant because I don't think you can do that without, if you ever ran into remains, you'd have to do these steps regardless of what we say. So I don't know why there's all of a sudden a clause being put in every one of these variances. It seems redundant to me, but there must be a new planner at the region or something. So.
Or it could be a new government of Ontario standard perhaps with
Yeah. So.
some of the things that have gone on, so.
Yep, so noted, I agree, just we'll read it once and then say this, unless it's a unique condition for the property.
No, absolutely. I just was, if we could just maybe just sort of from now on refer to it sort of as the advisory clause unless we need
Yep.
to say it. So.
And Walter has his hand up, so Walter?
Yeah, just there seems to be some curiosity as to why they're being asked for now, but they have archaeological resources mapping at the region now available, so that's why where there's archaeological potential, that's why these standard clauses are being requested.
Okay, thanks. Next application is for 229 Hysert Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a detached accessory building, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 12.25%, whereas 7.5% is permitted, to permit a maximum accessory building lot coverage of 8.75%, whereas 5% is permitted, to permit a minimum accessory building rear yard setback of 1.54 meters, whereas 3 meters is required, to permit a minimum accessory building interior side yard setback of 1.54 meters, whereas 3 meters is required, and to permit a maximum accessory building height to midpoint of peak of 4.71 meters, whereas 4.5 meters is permitted. And this is an image of the site plan that was submitted with the application and also circulated in the notice of hearing. This is an image of the neighborhood for context. These are the current conditions of the site. And this is what's proposed. And as far as correspondence, there were no objections from any of the agencies. However, there are a few conditions by Public Works and the region, which I will read out to you now. Public Works offers the condition of town staff will require lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. And the next condition is the advisory clause that was read out for the previous two applications about the archaeological remains.
Okay, is the owner or their representative here this evening? Or online? Nobody? Nobody here for 229 Hysert Road? That's a first. And is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak in favor or against before we open it up to the committee for questions? It's up to the committee if they want to defer or approve in absentia, or I guess it's not like a trial, but, or deny. Any comments or questions about the application? I don't have anybody to ask, but. Anyone in the members? First for me. Dan, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to ask them if they were going to have plumbing or living space inside. Because it's assumed that it's not due to the septic.
Do you want to put that as a condition if it were to be approved? Just as a reiterating what your, what the staff report's saying?
Correct, yep. Let's do that.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, my only comment, you know, and I've been on this for a very committee on a short time compared to you, but I sort of normally would like to have some kind of context of the owner here. So
Yep.
I mean I think that I don't see objections to approving it. It just
I'm fine either way. I'm fine either way. If you wish to defer it or not. Walter, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah,
As well?
I don't believe the owner or applicant is required to attend the meeting for the committee to make a decision. So if the committee feels that there's information that's required to make a decision or to deliberate on this application, and the owner is not here to provide that additional information, that's something we can consider, but participation isn't mandatory.
Okay, so what's the pleasure of the committee? Adam?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Dylan. I think, you think about any kind of judicial process, and this is a quasi-judicial process, you have to have a representative before, the deciding body. So, especially when there's conditions attached to the variance, I think it's important that the applicant understand those conditions.
Okay, so do we have a motion to defer it then? Dylan, seconded by Adam. Any further discussion? All those in favor to defer, raise their hand or say aye. Opposed, if any, was carried. Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
We should actually stipulate when the deferral is to, perhaps.
To the next meeting, I think?
I think so, yes.
Yeah, I'm good with that. I'll amend it to note unless anybody has an objection to that. Okay. All right, then the Next one is 185 Central Avenue, A1823. Dilhara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the purpose of this application is to facilitate the construction of a deck in the rear yard, to permit a maximum 6.6 meter encroachment into required rear yard, whereas a maximum 2.5 meter encroachment is permitted, to permit a maximum encroachment of 0.5 meters into the required interior side yard, whereas a maximum 0 meter encroachment is permitted, and to permit a minimum rear yard of 1.2 meters, whereas a minimum 1.3 meter rear yard is required. And this is an image of the site plan, which was circulated in the notice of hearing. An image of the neighborhood for context. And this is the proposed plan for the deck. There were no objections from any of the agencies, only one condition by the Public Works Department, which I will read out now. Town staff will require lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. That's the only condition, and that's it from me.
Thank you. Is the owner or their representative here or online? I see a few. Can we just get your name and address for the record? Who's ever like to speak first?
I'm Elizabeth Pattison, and this is my husband, Andrew Medley, and we're the homeowners at 185 Central Avenue.
Thank you. Go ahead. Or were you going to speak, or was somebody from Hickory Dickory Deck?
We were going to have Ryan Roberts speak to the anything technical to do with what we were proposing.
Okay.
We would just say that, we have a reasonably small backyard, and we're just hoping to create a covered outdoor space and a deck. So that's, programmatically that's the idea behind it. The setbacks are more than our small yard can do. So we made the setbacks a little bit smaller, but Ryan can speak about that. But in terms of what we want, it's just a covered outdoor space for our backyard.
And I think Pierce Bush is also going to speak on our behalf from Hickory Dickory.
Well, that's Pierce too.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I'm Ryan Roberts. I'm speaking on behalf of the Pattisons at 185 Central Ave. I'm just going to speak towards the lot grading and water runoff because of the roof and deck being put into that backyard. The deck is being proposed to be built on helical piles, which are very intrusive to the water runoff, which do not, change the grading or original lot grading plan and slope of what is already existing. There is no plan to do any grading or any change of that grading. And with the roof, we do plan to have east trough downspout to direct any water runoff of that roof to stay in the homeowner's yard and not encroach on any of the neighboring properties.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the committee members first? No? Dylan? No? Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this matter? No, if not, then do I have a motion? If the mover can read the application in your motion, the motion with the conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the motion would be resolved that minor variance application A18-23 by Andrew Medley and Elizabeth Pattison for 185 Central Ave to permit a maximum of 6.6 meter encroachment into a required rear yard, whereas a maximum of 2.5 meter encroachment is permitted, to permit a maximum encroachment of 0.5 meters into the required interior side yard, whereas a maximum 0 meter encroachment is permitted, and to permit a minimum rear yard of 1.2 meters where whereas a minimum 1.3 meter rear yard is required, be approved with conditions. And the conditions are, 1, town staff will require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. And that's all the conditions.
Thank you. And seconder, Dan? Any further discussion on this motion? All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any? Was carried. Thank you for attending this evening. It was approved subject to the conditions and subject to the 20-day appeal period.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the last application then is A1223 512 Mud Street West. Dilara?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so the purpose of this application is to facilitate the addition of a garage and dwelling unit to connect the buildings, to permit a maximum lot coverage of 20.3%, whereas a maximum of 7.5% is permitted, and to permit or legalize a minimum rear yard setback of 1.5 meters, whereas a minimum 15-meter rear yard is required. That is an image of the site plan, which was circulated along with the notice of hearing as well. That is an image of the neighborhood for context. Those are the current conditions of the site. And this is what's proposed. And for correspondence, there were no objections from any of the agencies. A couple of conditions were provided by Public Works and the region, which I will read out now. Condition number 1, town staff will require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties. And condition number 2 is the same condition that was read out in a previous application about the advisory clause regarding archaeological remains. And that's it from me.
Thank you. As you're speaking on this, I understand, so could we just get your name and address for the record?
Ontario.
Thank you, Kyle. Did you wish to add anything or elaborate on the application or the staff reports?
It's been a long time coming. I originally had a pre-construction meeting with Walter and Adam on the project. I tried getting a border adjustment with the neighboring properties to ease the requirement of the variance, but I was unsuccessful after a couple of years of pursuing, so now we're here. Sorry, the button didn't work.
Yeah, it's on.
There we go.
Button's on.
Turn off the, you can, on screen, you can turn it off on the screen.
Accessibility, and then to create some more aesthetically pleasing storage.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? We just get you wait 2 seconds in case there's some questions. Committee members have any questions? Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kyle, there was just some notes about septic and the size of septic moving forward. And there's just a clause, the regional staff has no objections, provided no bedrooms, living space, or plumbing fixtures are constructed within the garage or dwelling addition. Can you just confirm that?
Yep. We had discussed things on site that if we do end up pursuing a building in the back, or we do attain that property eventually, then we could possibly, but as of right now, it's a maximum, so.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? No? No? Dylan, no? Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this matter this evening? No? If not, then do we have a mover and a seconder? If the mover could read the motion of the conditions?
Thank you. I move that resolve that minor variance application A1223 by Elizabeth Hone for 512 Mud Street West to permit a maximum lot coverage of 20.3%, whereas a maximum of 7.5% is permitted, and to permit legalize a minimum rear yard setback of 1.5 meters, whereas a minimum 15-meter rear yard setback is required, that it be approved with conditions. And those conditions are, one, that the town staff will require a lot grading and drainage plan demonstrating that stormwater runoff will not negatively impact nor rely upon neighboring properties, and the advisory clause that we have read already today at this meeting.
Thank you. A seconder? Adam? Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
One statement.
Yep.
Actually, I do believe that it was provided a couple weeks ago for the grading plan. So that was provided from, I think, Chambers and Associates.
Okay, then that would be an easy condition to meet then.
Excellent.
Good. Any other questions or comments? We had a mover and a seconder. All those in favor say aye or raise their hand. Opposed, if any, was carried. Thanks very much. And again, it's subject to the 20-day appeal period before it becomes final. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Okay, that's it before the applications. And then we have the last item on the agenda, I believe. Help me out here. The motion regarding discussion, the notice of motion? Yeah. Did anybody wish to offer any comments regarding the staff report and the information that was in the agenda package at the back? Adam, did you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I read through the report. The motion, or the notice of motion I brought at the last meeting, I guess, is moot at this point because the actual effect of it was to cause a review, which has been done by our Secretary Treasurer. And yeah, I would like to add that, you know, it pretty much reflected what I've found in other municipalities, that they post everything online. And I would note that our new Secretary Treasurer has been very diligent in getting that all that information online. But the one thing that's missing, and I discussed this with a member prior to the meeting, is that we're not getting the actual minor variance application, which is a public document, forms the basis of what is coming before the committee, and importantly, it contains the permission to enter that, you know, we should have when we're visiting properties. So I think if that can be brought online, you know, yeah, I think it's pretty much covered.
Any other questions or comments from the committee members? Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. In one of the correspondence, it had stated that floor plans are omitted from the documents. I believe that was in Hamilton. And I like that. I just think that a floor plan can change. Homeowners can change their mind, and we may think that a bedroom's in the northeast corner and it's not. And I don't like, well, it might not be great that impact our decision or potentially impact the decision of a neighbor who, you know, may, so let's say it's an open to above. There is no room there, and they state that, and the neighbor's okay because the window doesn't overlook their backyard, and then they decide to put a bedroom up there. So I just think it's misleading information, and also to have the floor plan layouts online is maybe not the safest for neighborhoods. So that stood out to me in that document, that I thought that's a good idea to leave some of that stuff out, but that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I would agree with that as well. I'd second that. Anyone else? Dylan?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, with the last comment, but I think it's all in context. I mean, I think when we talk about floor plans, there can be sort of general sort of layouts, which I think can provide a lot of detail and help in decision making. So, you know, you're right. I don't necessarily think that we need, you know, where hallways and everything that are internally, but I would say that, you know, the various elevation and, you know, and perhaps I'm misinterpreting floor plan, but sort of where, you know, where things are and will be in the greater context can help in decision making. So, you know, perhaps that, you know, a high level of detail should be omitted, but I know that we have had conversations about, you know, things about, you know, who's looking at me from this side, you know, from neighbors on that side. So it does help, I think, in decision making, all within context.
Thank you, Dylan, for those comments. Anyone else? Adam?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, just going back to the application again. The required information is statutory, so I just wonder, like, can we get reassurance that this will be posted in the future for, maybe not permission to enter form publicly, obviously, but the actual application, because it contains information as why people can't meet the zoning bylaw, for instance, on a minor variance, and we don't have that information when it comes in, just get the notice.
Yeah, so basically I was waiting until the discussion happened in order to send the applications out, right? I didn't think it was appropriate to do it before the discussion happened at the meeting. So you will be getting the applications from the next meeting onwards.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Thank you. And I think maybe the compromise on the floor plans would be, to Dylan's point, it has helped sometimes in the discussion and the resolving some neighbors' concerns when they show the floor plan, but to Dan's point, they could change it, I guess. But maybe if they were able to present the floor plans at the meeting, so they're not necessarily online, I guess technically they would be if it's a recorded session, but it's not circulated in the agenda package, it doesn't stay a permanent part of the online record that people can download later and get the neighbors' floor plans, right? But they may wish to present the floor plans at the meeting in a PowerPoint, which we have seen before. Would be my 2 cents. Walter?
Thank you, through you, Chair. I was just wondering if it would be fruitful for the committee to discuss other information on the application forms, like personal phone numbers or email addresses, things like that.
Adam?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I was actually going to suggest that even though it's not required by law, I think the Information Privacy Commissioner suggests to redact certain information to prevent it from getting in search engines, and that includes usually the contact information of the applicant or agent, like telephone number, email address, and their signature is considered personal information.
Yeah, and I think I saw that in one of the other municipalities where they redact that information, so good point as well. Any further discussion?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just
Nope,
one
sorry.
more.
Yep.
Sorry about that. Just on the floor plan issue, but the decisions that we're making don't necessarily affect where a bedroom and where a wall internally will necessarily be. I mean, I would leave that to a building permit sort of level of detail. I mean, we're sort of looking at the sort of outer, measurements of land and of the structure itself. So, I'll leave it to greater minds. And I would agree that a compromise may be if, to show things, at the committee meeting itself. But, I don't think that because we necessarily approve that a bedroom is here and the square footage of a bathroom there is then sort of sacrosanct for us. So, I do think that it does help in some cases. Yeah,
I would agree. I think it's only, I guess the prerogative would be to the applicant if they wish to help convince the neighbor that there's not a bedroom overlooking their backyard deck or something, so they don't have to present it, but if it helps their case, they may wish to do that. And we've had that before. It wasn't in circulation, but they pulled out a set of plans that we could look at to help convince of although it's a reduction in side yard, it's blank space or whatever it was at the time. It's up to them, but not put it in the actual agenda package.
Yeah, I have no objections.
Walter, we're going to defer to you. Is there anything formally required? Is it just received for information, or what, for the committee's perspective, for this motion, notice of motion?
Through you, Chair, it is a notice of motion. It's put in the form of a resolution, so it's up to the committee's discretion. You can receive it, you can pass it, you can approve it, deny it. It's up to you. But it was put forward as a resolution to be considered.
Adam, it was your notice of motion, so I'll let you make the motion maybe, or the resolution.
Thank you. Since, like I say, it's been the body of the motion's largely moved, I have a sort of like an alternative one drafted that it just sort of more or less covers, I think, what we discussed here tonight. Just give me a moment just to read it, and then I'll just, let's see. Okay, so I'll just read it, and then if anyone feels there needs to be any change. Whereas town staff has conducted a review on the distribution of application materials and supporting documentation of applicants to committees of adjustment in Hamilton and Niagara-on-the-Lake, and whereas this review has demonstrated that it is best practice to post online with limited exceptions all application materials to a committee of adjustment for transparency and efficiency, therefore be resolved that the committee of adjustment for the town of Grimsby directs the secretary treasurer to post all applications to the committee and such supporting materials online in a timely manner, and further that any material posted be redacted of an applicant's / agent's contact information, signature, or other personal information as advisable by a municipal clerk.
So you're going to make that motion. Do we have a seconder then? Dylan? Yeah, go ahead. Any further comments, Dan? Yeah.
Oh, thank you. In that motion, there was no redaction of the floor plans or limitations regarding that. Is that something we want to address now?
I think so. If you, it's a friendly amendment there. Yeah. You're okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, okay. And you're okay with that as a seconder, Dylan? Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, if any, was carried. And I believe that's all we have this evening, right? Yeah. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Welcome to the new